1, 2, 3, swing it.
Do you have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448 or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We've been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, duplets and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way!
I was terrified about sharing the vulnerabilities of people with difficulties reading and spelling words. However, I could see the value in sharing, and I have taken the time to make some notes about this in my book, Dyslexic: The Silent Difference. You can get your copy now at www.a1tribe.com or amazon.com or amazon.co.uk. Thank you again, everyone, for your support.
Do you like music like this?
Great music all the time.
Or like this?
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Or life track like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, I'm a World Jam. Hotter than them. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
Stand by for another explosive Issues today on World Jam Global Radio.
I paid for my crime.
Alongside your host today, that's me, Kelvin Julian. You've got our producer, TJ Gallagher. She goes by the name of Therese.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime.
And we do have two guests.
Paid for my crime.
Founders and organizers of the Stolen Lives Project.
Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was all about survival. It was do or die.
And I don't know if I'm going to say it right, but it's October 22nd Coalition, I think.
Ooh, I learned my lessons in the streets. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man.
We've actually been trying to organize this show for God knows how many months now.
Too short to spin it all in.
But we finally got Kathie Cheng
with this living hell
and Juanita Young live on Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. Stand by.
Time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my.
Please use this opportunity during the introduction to share this live stream on every social media platform you can.
Already did my time.
Let's make sure that we can get our truth out there.
I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now I'll sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime, pay for my crime, felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I
want to say a big shout out going out to our roundtable crew. That's Yolanda McNair, Jerry Summers,
all over the street.
Jonathan Newton, Patrick Lane, Scott Russian,
Changed the whole game has been
Justin Powers.
I'm a changed man, don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster.
Big shout out going out to D. Martin,
in jail.
Lorraine Thompson, Vanessa Whirling.
Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do, that's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now I'll sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live.
We're talking to two people today.
Young and dumb, my brain was
Kathie Chung, Kathie Cheng,
nobody's chump. Me and Billy
and Juanita Young, founders of the Stolen Lives Project.
Then Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'd chew you up and spit you out.
And Juanita Young, mother of Malcolm Ferguson, shot dead by an undercover drug cop. March 2000.
Already did my time.
I suppose one of the reasons why we're doing this show, it's very rare we actually get a win, no matter how that win comes about. But she sued and successfully sued. Got a huge payout to boot.
Trying to cope with this living.
We're going to hear the story of Juanita Young very shortly.
Trying to cope with this living here.
So don't despair.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
If you're out there, still struggling and living without hope, where there's a will, there's a way. As long as there's a God in heaven.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come.
Good evening, Lorraine Thompson.
On earth as it is in heaven.
Tracy Knight.
Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those.
Big shout out to Ronnie Canada, who happens to be the lead vocalist on this track you're listening to now.
Evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Formerly of the Blue Notes from Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Caviar, successful singer and songwriter in his own right.
Stop him. It ain't about nothing. He who was
not sure if he's in Florida or is in the UK at the minute.
Stone. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote.
Well, we're going live to our guests very shortly. Stand by.
This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. And put down those knives. Stop stabbing each other. Yeah.
World Jam Global Radio. This is clarity.
Okay, we've got to that point. It's another edition of Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. And we do have two guests with us today. The mother of Malcolm Ferguson, that's Juanita Young, and also fellow co-organizer and former co-founder of the Stolen Lives Project is Kathie Cheng. But before we go to Kathie and Juanita, let's say a big hello to producer TJ, Teresa Gallagher. Are you there, Teresa?
I am here. How are you?
Okay, we're good. How are we doing?
Good. Good. Really good.
Okay, and I know we've had a long time running now with these injuries that you've had, and I'm just hoping that have you got any good news for us? Is it improving? Are you feeling any better?
Is there any way you can grab a cab?
I actually am feeling better. I anticipate to get my in July or August. So that's good.
Okay, that's great. We've got two guests that you've been fighting to get on this show for a long time. And we've had to rearrange it so many times. But finally we're here. And Kathie Cheng will be with us shortly. Juanita Young, as far as I'm aware, is on her way and should be in the studio any minute now. Or shall be in Kathie Cheng's where they can share. And I would imagine that she's already there. They're just getting themselves set up. But you know them, don't you? You've had a relationship with them for some time.
I do know them for many years after travel. Way to go! I didn't know this picture, and I didn't know about help that we can get as survivors of horrendous crimes and murders. And so I had a private eye that told me about October 22nd, and that's a Stop Brutality chapter. And Kathie Cheng, who's on, and Juanita Young, who is also on today, along with Nicholas, organized this wonderful organization to help. Then they opened up the Stolen Lives Project, and they're wonderful activists. They never quit. We just lost Nicholas Hayward short ago, and I'll let them talk about it. But I absolutely think they saved my life. Always, no matter when I called, 2, 3 in the morning, not realizing they're on the East Coast or not paying attention to that, and hysterical, not knowing which way to turn or what I could do. They always were there, always were there. And then they inducted Travis into the Stolen Lives Project. First one ever via Skype across the whole world. And we were so blessed with that. It just gave us more determination to just keep on going and not quitting, and to hopefully stop this brutality that is rampant in our country, all over the world. It's rampant. And they're absolutely wonderful. I watched Kathie go through. She was a teacher when I met her, and I watched her get her doctorate, and now I'm proud to say she's a professor. And Juanita is the strongest, probably one of the strongest activists that I know of, that never stops. She never ever stops. And I'm really, really glad that they're both on the show today and that they're together. Are you there, Kathie?
I am, yes.
Just one thing to note, Kathie. When you type away on that keyboard, it is very loud.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You can be forgiven. But yeah, it's great to welcome you onto the show. Maybe Therese has given you a great introduction, but it'd be nice to hear a little bit from you. First of all, can you just introduce yourself to our audience? Tell them who you are, where you are, and I know you're very much a private person, but what you're about. And then there's a couple of questions that I want to ask you and I know we're still waiting for Juanita to get here. I do believe she's on her way, but we'll be patient. But yeah, just introduce yourself for us for the time being, Kathie.
Sure. I live in New York City, and I've been working on the fight against police brutality since 2000. Do you want to hear my origin story in terms of how I got involved?
I was going to ask you that afterwards, but first we just want to know about you, who you are,
Okay.
what do you do? I mean, TJ has told us that you're a professor, which obviously means that you teach something, or tell us about you. I want to know about you.
Yeah, I've been teaching as an adjunct at New York City College and universities for 22 years now.
Wow.
And I did just finally get my doctorate. It took me like 10 years to finish it. And I actually did get to focus on trying to look into how to get the Stone Lives Project online as an accessible, usable database. And I have been working with October 22nd Coalition to Stop Police Brutality, Repression, and Criminalization of a Generation since 2000, and also the Stone Lives Project. Mainly, I was very, very new to organizing in general, and so I basically
So I mean, what was your life like before you got involved in this lifestyle? What did Kathie Cheng do? What was she about?
Actually, not too much different from what I'm doing now. I was juggling a whole lot of jobs, teaching in a few schools and temping, and I worked at Starbucks for a while too because I didn't have any health insurance through teaching. Um, but yeah, I mean, mostly I was just focusing on getting my feet wet in teaching, and I started getting involved with organizing a couple of years after that.
So Kathie Cheng never got married. Kathie Cheng never had children.
No, no intention to either.
Wow. Yeah, I think you're missing out on some of the best enjoyable moments in life. But hey, so most of your life you've been career focused then.
Well, it's like I do love to teach, and unfortunately, with the corporatization of the university, it's very difficult to get a full-time job teaching. So I do end up having to have to teach in more than one school at a time and hold down like one or two other jobs in order to pay my bills, basically. But I really love working in the classroom. I love getting students to find different ways to critically read and write. I think the more I got involved with organizing, the more I shifted my focus in the classroom too, in terms of what I prioritize for students to learn from me.
Wow. Okay. So I then take it at some point as you traveled along the way, you got caught up in this police brutality regime or event. So what first attracted you to the events that were taking place on the streets of where you were?
Well, I actually never was interested in or involved with anything political or any kind of activism work at all. Growing up, I just saw politics as two old white guys in suits yelling at each other, and I was like, this has nothing to do with me, so I don't care. And like during college, the time when a lot of people do start becoming more conscious and activated in their lives, I was kind of just more interested in music or whatever else. So it wasn't until after I was already teaching for a few years that I heard the news. It was like some store I happened to be in. It was the radio that was playing, but it was news about the verdict for the cops who killed Amadou Diallo. And I was not even. I generally don't watch the news, so I wasn't following it. I knew about it, but even just hearing that, I was just totally shocked. Like, how is that possible? It's kind of obvious they're guilty, right? And I mean, I was raised to like turn to police for help, and grew up in a relatively conservative household. So, but yeah, I think I've always been a little critical of authority in general. So at that moment, I was just curious, just trying to make sense of things. And so I started going to like panel discussions and forums, and there were a lot of them going on in New York City. And I think I met some folks that work with October 22nd Coalition and Stone Lives Project at one event that I attended. It was a panel on about the PBA, that's the Police Benevolence Association, which is the police union here in New York. And Nicholas Hayward actually was on that panel. as well as Steve Yip, who works with October 22nd Coalition and a number of other organizations. And I remember King Downing, who was on that panel, and Jill Nelson, Graham Witherspoon. So it's just interesting, like I met all these people on that panel so many years ago, and then eventually I got to work with them in different capacities. But I think Steve was the one who reached out to me. I bought my first Stolen Lives book there. And he actually reached out to me to come to a meeting for Agents from UMIA, Jericho. And from there, because a lot of folks that worked in that organization were also in October 22nd Coalition, they were like, you should come to one of the 022 meetings. And that's how I ended up getting involved.
So, I mean, A, you're not married. B, you have no children. So what was it about the Stolen Lives that connected with you, that resonated with you?
I think it was just seeing story after story after story of the same thing. And I mean, it's like I never had any, like police brutality wasn't on my radar. Like, I mean, I knew it happened. I knew a lot of atrocities happened in our world and everything, but it wasn't something that especially got my attention. And so for me to just to hear families speaking, to hear other people discussing it and just really critically analyzing what's going on, that drew my attention. And that was part, and initially I was really more interested on a very academic level, kind of like, this is a very useful information for me and useful critical lens through which to teach and for students to learn. And, so I was looking at it from that perspective. But the more and more that I got involved, initially I was just handing out flyers. That's all I could do. I didn't really know anything. I just, worked with a lot of people that got me more, it's not engaged seems like too weak of a word, but I got swept into it. Just, from the families I've worked with and the other organizations I've worked with. And I saw something that was important and needed to be highlighted and given attention.
Do you know, people get roped into things for all different reasons. We find a thing that resonates with us, and we kind of go along. Was there a definitive point? Was there a particular case, a particular story, a particular family, a particular individual, a particular event that took place that really snatched at you? That got you the rest of the way from just being a come along to a committed member?
I mean, I would think that panel that I attended was an initial spark, because that got me interested in getting involved at all. And the organization that put that one together no longer exists, but it was the New York New Abolitionists. And so I was working with them for a little while. And I don't know, I guess taking part in organizing for the first National Day of Protest might have done it. Like, I was mainly just going to meetings and helping to pass out flyers and trying to get other, like attending other organizations' events, hoping that someone could announce the National Day of Protest. But because I've never been involved with organizing something like that before. And I think just seeing so many different people come together and stand together against one thing that, is an obvious injustice, but unfortunately, a normal part of our society. So it's built into our structure as acceptable and normal. That was something that inspired me and wanted me to continue working with it.
Do you know, I'd have imagined prior to you going along to one of those meetings, how often would you be seeing this flashing up in the news on TV or in a newspaper, or how often had you passed the street corners and seen little protests taking place and wondered, either what's going on here, or B, what was I suppose what I'm really trying to get at, I'm trying to find out, what was your original impression of people that was campaigning against police brutality before you got stuck into police brutality?
I don't think I wasn't drawn towards activism or protests in general. Like, I didn't see it as something negative or something. I think I was kind of indifferent to it, actually. And it really was actually organizing for it and kind of seeing the, I guess, the kind of clapback we were getting that made it seem so much more important then, and so much more necessary.
You know, we work we work with a lot of different people and different organizations who work with families of victims right across the United States of America. And one of them is one of our regular guests and panelists, and I refer to as a very dear friend, Yolanda McNair, from Protect Our Stolen Treasures. And there is something about this thing that it begins to consume you in a good way, because you're beginning to hear the stories of people's pain. Now, people like TJ, Yolanda, and I suppose even Juanita Young, who we're going to be having on here shortly, are quite. It's easy for them to relate to the victims' families that they meet and greet along the way, because of the thing that they've been through themselves, their own experience that they've had in losing a loved one to unlawful killing by cops, police brutality, etc. What is it that connects your heart to the heart of this?
Well, I think because I have worked with and talked with and became friends with so many families of people who've been killed by police, that's like I see like what's really going on, like after the little blip in the news about their loved ones, and I get to see like the kind of impact it has, and I can see like how strong they are in continuing to try to bring justice to their loved ones. And they're like really the most inspiring for me.
Do you know? Because I know by speaking, because I speak to these individuals regularly. There are some guests that I've had on this show, like Lorraine Thompson and Dee Martin, and there are Shiloh Phelps and Tanisha Wilson. There are people that I've had on this show that have actually broken my heart, and I've sat here struggling to stop myself from crying or breaking into tears myself when you hear the pain of the depth of their loss. We always use a moment at the beginning of the show to allow them to humanize their lost loved one, to share the memories that they've had growing up from a child up until the loss, so that we can actually have an understanding of the depth of it. And it never fails to hit me in a place where most things you try to protect yourself from. And when you're at the heart of organizing something like this, whether it be Post Protect Your Stolen Treasures or the Stolen Lives Project or any of the other organizations that are out there trying to support victims and victims' families, it's a difficult thing to every time a new person walks in and they're at that point where you might have been 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and I'm not talking about me in particular, I'm talking about the Teresas and the Yolandas and the Juanitas and those who have lost loved ones, who have campaigned for years and continue to campaign in spite of whatever it is that they're going through with their own loss, is what I'm trying to get at. But every time somebody new comes up, or there is another new case, there's another new news story of another child whose life has been wastefully taken away, and another family grieving, and that person walks in for the first time, or walks up for the first time, or attends a meeting for the first time, or turns up to a protest or something for the first time, or turns up at somebody's office or one of these groups or one of these organizations, for example, and they're telling their truth, their hurt, their pain for the first time. It's got to be one of the most heart-wrenching moments for any individual whether you've got a child or not. Have you had that experience where you've sat down and heard somebody coming in and telling their truth and their pain for the first time, where it's so raw you could almost touch it?
Well, that's I think Teresa's mentioned before about the Stolen Lives induction ceremony. For many families, that's the first time they get to very publicly speak and say whatever it is that they want to speak about their loved ones and what they've been through. And I mean, some they might have talked to like media that kind of has very directed questions, or maybe their lawyer tells them not to speak about this or that or whatever. And then when we have our rallies, it's different because it's out in the open and out on the street, and it's very noisy, and there's a mic or a bullhorn. We have to reach a lot of people. But when in the induction ceremonies that we try to organize regularly, for the Stolen Lives Project, anyone who is killed by police, anybody killed by law enforcement is included in the Stolen Lives Project, but in the U.S. But the induction ceremony is just like a formal way of doing so. But it's also like a space for a lot of families to also meet each other and make those connections and build those bridges so they can find strength in each other. Some families have come to the induction ceremony, spoke, received a certificate, and then we never see them again. But they have this moment where they have the undivided attention of everyone there, and they're able to share their stories. And yeah, we do see some who are. There was one pair of parents who had come, and they didn't really speak English much, and they mostly just stood there and cried, and it was, I mean, there's a lot of moments where being able to tell the stories. I mean, sometimes it's like families who have told the story over and over and over again, and then being able to tell it again in this setting with so many other families around. It's both inspiring and heartbreaking.
I do believe that TJ just wants to step in there for a moment.
Yeah, just for a moment, I wanted to go back to when you asked how he feels with the emotions of all the people that she hears and feels. And I too want to agree that it doesn't get any easier no matter how many people you talk to. It's an emotion that is devastating. And in my position as your assistant producer, I speak with many. And it is not only healing, but heartbreak. That's kind of bittersweet. Many times I mute my mic because of tears that are falling and emotion that it takes me a minute to get a grip with. I've been in that situation with Kathie Cheng. And as she put Travis via Skype on the Stolen Lives, for the very first time, it was, I couldn't even speak. In fact, I don't know if you remember, I couldn't even speak.
I remember. Brian had to speak for you.
Yeah, he did. But, even Travis has been gone 15 years now, and it seems like yesterday. So, just like you, boss, you're affected by it. So many people are affected by it that you don't necessarily have to go through the trauma to have the damage that's done. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, the bottom line is we go through story after story each week, and we dissect each story. One of the things that I think we've been pretty good at doing here on this show is giving people alternative viewpoints as to angles that they can pursue in order to continue fighting for the justice of their loved ones. We give them a fresh set of eyes, and we see it from a whole different perspective. And I'd like to say that me and you in particular, TJ, we are absolutely fantastic team. We work well together, and we're very quick to pick out things that people actually haven't seen, even in the stories that have been printed, that they've read over and over again. But we come with new angles and different angles, and they've often said to us at the end of the show or even during the show, "I never thought of that," or "I never saw that. I didn't think of it that way."
Right.
And I think that's what I love about what we do here, is that we give people a platform that are able, and just by, and I think what I'm really, when you do these coordinated interviews that are micromanaged by national conglomerate TV stations, who then want to run away and edit it, and it comes out like nothing that you said when you met them in the first place. Nobody really gets to hear how you actually felt or how you see things, and they don't always honor their stance when they first approach you by saying, "Oh well, we're really up for you. We're behind you on this. Just if feel free to tell your story." They've still 9 times out of 10 they've still got an angle, and they're still trying to press for that angle. And even some of their questions are aimed at you to try and direct you to come at that angle. And I suppose what I'm trying to say is, when we have a platform like this that gives somebody an opportunity to tell their version of the truth, uninterrupted and uninterfered with, we actually get to hear a different story from the one that the media is pushing out on national TVs and newspapers right across the country, and in fact sometimes even across the world.
Spot on.
I remember when we did Sandra Bland before anybody else in the world. That was one of our claims to fame here on Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. I think we did Sandra Bland the day after, or whatever it was, but we did a whole show dedicated to that, and we ripped that to pieces. We shredded that. Every claim that the police tried to make, and I think we've done that with several other. We've done it with the Kendrick Johnson. We've done it with so many different big shows. Tamir Rice. But what I've also liked being able to do is do it with some of those smaller stories that people haven't heard of, the ones that haven't made front page or headlines. That's the ones that I really love getting into, simply because the families have never had an opportunity to share their truth.
And they don't know that they have the opportunity.
No.
And that's exactly why I told Kathie I wanted her and Juanita to be on our show so bad, because I want the world to know, that there are people out there that, don't necessarily lose a child, but have empathy. And for it to go from corner to corner because of the wonderful host, Curvin Julian.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a message that we've got right now. Kathie sent us a message, and you're still there, Kathie, but she's saying that Juanita is not going to be able to make it. Can we try and put it on speakerphone? I really don't know how that's going to turn out, and I don't think.
Do you want me to try it and see how it sounds?
You can try.
Let me. I'm going to step away for a second. Try.
Or the best thing that you could do is that we can talk for about. How long would it take you to get to Juanita?
No. I'm thinking I'm just going to call her on my phone and just have the speakerphone up against the mic on my laptop.
Okay, let's see how that runs.
Okay, let me try.
In the meantime, TJ, you just carry on and talk about your experience.
Yeah, well, like that, Kathie and Juanita and I did that last night, and it was fun. So I think. Wasn't it, Kathie?
Kathie's gone away at the minute, so you're going to have to talk while she tries to connect with Juanita.
Well, boss, is just I think that this story needs to go across the platform that you present and give people the opportunity. And I'm a little bit biased, maybe, because they helped me so much, and they still help me. And if I could help somebody like they've helped me, then I'm going for it. And there's been many people on our platform that we've had as guests that have the empathy is just, it's tangible. Don't you think?
Oh Oh, absolutely. I mean, bearing in mind that those that we had, I mean, Patrick Lane or Scott Rushing, for example, these are, Patrick Lane is an uncle of a victim and Scott Rushing is a father.
Right.
But when you hear his compassion for the other families that we talk about on our show, you realize that his grief goes way beyond his own circumstance.
Exactly.
He'll feel and share your pain with you. Because he knows what that pain is. It's not a sympathy. It's an empathy that he has because he knows what that pain is, and so does Patrick. He was very close with his nephew, so So when they're talking to other people who have been through or are going through a similar circumstance, then their passion, their emotion is genuine. It's real, and it's tangible. Their pain is almost your pain. I don't know if we got.
And they take that on.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
and that's what.
I really did want to talk. I really did want to talk to Juanita because I felt it was important.
I have her on the phone right now.
I don't know. Can she hear us?
Say something?
Yeah, go on. That's not going to work. It's not going to work. I can hear her, but very, very, very low.
Hold on, let me try turning up the volume a little bit as high as I can. Can you say something, Juanita?
Yes.
I don't know.
Keep talking.
That's good.
We can try that.
Can you talk more directly into the phone?
That's what I'm doing.
Can you hear her?
No, it's inaudible. You'll hear two words and you're missing another three.
Okay, that's a shame.
It's a shame. How much of Juanita's case do you know about? Because I really wanted to go into some of that.
I do know pretty well because I've worked with her on the case.
You can have her on standby and ask her questions and maybe repeat it back on her behalf if you like, that kind of thing. But to try and get her directly on, we're going to have a real interference that's and it's going to be inaudible. Our audience are not going to really be able to hear what she's saying unless it's repeated by you. That's what I think.
Is it possible to make regular phone calls on Skype? No, right?
What do you mean regular phone calls?
Like I'm going to look it up really quickly just to make a regular call. I'm wondering if you can patch her in, like even though she doesn't have Skype.
If she doesn't have Skype, we can't get her on here.
No, that's what I was trying to figure out, if you can make a regular call.
Yeah. Because there's absolutely no way to add her to the group unless she's actually in Skype. Right, TJ. We can't have silence, so let's just think about where we go from here with this show now, because we've still got an hour and 15 minutes that we have to really try and fill this with something. And in looking at what the Stolen Lives do, how is it comparable? I mean, the great work that's been done right across the country. There's lots of little pockets of groups, but I just think that they should more be working together to accomplish the same goal, as opposed to I don't know. I don't know if I'm even speaking out of turn here. Jump in, TJ, save me.
The Stolen Lives induction ceremony is huge, and the healing is fantastic. And they all gather at I don't know how many various destinations, but at churches, and they support each other, and you can feel it. You can actually feel the love and concern that they have for the individual that's sharing the story. The Stolen Lives Project is it's a huge ceremony. It's a celerity. It's empowerment. It's all the people of past police killings and families inducted into the roster is an accomplishment to those of us that have lost our children and have no justice. Do you know what I mean? It it kind of helps that way.
The front page of the front page of the Stolen Lives website says the mission of the Stolen Lives Project is to assemble a national list of people killed by law enforcement agents from 1990 to the present. Through grassroots efforts, and over 2,000 cases were documented in the second edition of the Stolen Lives book, which was published in 1999. Although just the tip of the iceberg, these 2,000 plus are evidence of a horrifying national epidemic of police brutality. The victims of police violence were part of our society, but rarely are their lives or names publicized, or the real circumstances surrounding their deaths investigated and made known. The Stolen Lives Project aims to restore some dignity to the lives lost. Though their lives have been stolen from us, we will not allow them to be forgotten. That's what it says on the front of their website.
And that's spot on. And it's so healing, and it's such a privilege. As you know, look how many people. I'll give you the example. Look how many people are so grateful for you to put this type of platform on that where people can go to. It's huge, and I just can't tell you how powerful you are. The same goes with, I think maybe any organization that is really out there to help anybody that is being, has their constitutional rights jeopardized, period. And there's people that they don't lose their children, but their children will never get over, just because they weren't murdered, but they'll never get over the trauma that they went through, or the trust that we're supposed to have for our government, our peace officers. I think it was like I always said, search and destroy. That's how I felt they were after Travis was murdered. And so to come across an organization like October 22nd, like Stolen Lives Project, the ceremonies that take place, we were on Skype, and it was going on in a church in, I think it was in Manhattan or Brooklyn, one of them. And just to hear, and it wasn't going all across the world like what you do. So that's basically why I wanted Juanita on, and I want Scott Trent on, and I want Kathie Cheng on to show that their part, like our Yolanda, she's huge, and I want other people to be recognized like Yolanda, and she's Miss Curtsy. She's wonderful.
One of our guests, one of our listeners, Vanessa in particular, is asking, I suppose, these ceremonies, she's asking, where are they held?
Well, the ceremonies are in the community spaces. I'm quoting this now. Since 1990, 10 Stolen Lives induction ceremonies have taken place in New York City, in community spaces such as school, church in Manhattan and Brooklyn. Families and other loved ones of over 50 stolen lives, located and from other parts of the country, have taken part in certificates that mark the formal induction. At these ceremonies, families speak of their loved ones and the struggles for justice. Their voices joined by community organizations and others in the fight against police violence, as well as artists who contribute their art and performance for healing, for strength, for empowerment. These ceremonies end with the pledge, and by all of those that are as a reaffirmation to the commitment to the struggle. And then they have the Stolen Lives Pledge that says, I blank pledge that the life and the humanity of these stolen lives will not be forgotten. I pledge that their highest hope and aspirations will live on in us, and that I will seek justice for these and all stolen lives. In this way, I pledge that the memory will stay alive and will inspire us to fight for justice and a better world. So it's a quite wonderful program.
Thank you. So
Sorry, I stepped away. I'm back.
That's okay. Have you managed to set that up yet?
No, so something. Juanita's daughter was gonna pick her up and bring her over here, but she hasn't shown up yet, and there's nobody else to watch all the grandkids either. So I don't think she'll be making it over.
Okay.
Like I was hoping she can grab a cab, but yeah, I didn't realize there was like no one to watch all the kids though.
Okay, so if I remember correctly, I think the Guardian did the counted, which was how many people killed by cops, and the last official documented count was 2015, wasn't it? When I think they had 1,093. Have we got any idea of the rate and increase per year since 2015 to 2019 of how many individuals are killed by cops?
There are actually different documentation projects besides the Stolen Lives Project and the Counted, and there's different criteria for what's counted though. So that's why there's going to be some discrepancies in numbers.
Okay, so let's go by what the Stolen Lives have counted. What do you have any idea of what your figures are over the last 4 or 5 years?
It's actually very difficult because we haven't been able to keep track nationally for a long time. When the Stolen Lives book was published in 1999, that took on major national grassroots efforts to get that published and done. And back then it was like 2,000 cases in the 1990s. And this was like the first documentation of national cases of these killings in which are given of what happened, which was one of the most important parts. Because just having the statistics is helpful, but being able to see story after story telling the exact same story, I think that's important to see, that that the basically the official narrative that's often given anytime someone is killed by police. It's like, choose from A, B, or C. I feared for my life. I thought the person had a weapon, or so we see these stories repeatedly, and it's important, I think, for families to see that, because very often when their loved ones are killed, they're isolated immediately and made to feel that either they were a bad parent, or this is an isolated incident, or just a few bad apples, when it's systemic.
Okay, so according to the Washington Post, fatal force, people have been shot and killed by police in 2019 to date to 323, is what they're saying.
Okay. Yeah, fatal force counts only those who are killed by on-duty police by guns, like that are shot by duty police. So it's helpful to be limited, because that way there's no fuzziness about, or gray areas about, well, was this really police killing? Was this real? Yeah. So they keep it very, very the parameters very limited, which is useful.
In 2018 they recorded 992. In 2017 they recorded 986. In 2016 they recorded 962, and in 2015 it's 994. So every year, as far as they're concerned, and that's still only half the figure that I'm aware of.
Right.
because
Yeah, I think
for most of those years we've been counting 17 to 1800 minimum that have been shot and killed by cops. But I suppose they're saying people shot dead by police. People are not always shot dead by police, because I would imagine that this doesn't count for the ones that the police say shot themselves.
Right.
So when you've got people like Little Vic, for example, and there was another one that we had recently, but Little Vic is the one that stood out, Victor White's son, who they claim shot himself while he was handcuffed behind his back. And there was a woman recently who they've claimed shot herself while she was handcuffed behind her back. So I would imagine those people don't actually come into the figures. 952 of those figures in 2015 were male, and only 42 were female. And trying to look at some of the statistics that went with it, 830 of them, I suppose they're claiming, had a deadly weapon. 43 of them had a toy weapon. 94 of them were unarmed, and 27 of them were unknown. And those figures, which are coming from the Washington Post, as far as I'm concerned, are pretty, what we say in the UK as pony.
What does pony mean?
Absolute garbage.
Oh, I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah, it's we use it here in the UK. If we say something's pony, it means that it's not good at all, and that's just a polite version of it's not good at all.
Yeah, there used to be a Facebook page called Killed by Police, and unfortunately that had to be taken down because the person that was working on, and all the person was doing was posting corporate media coverage of any police killing. And they were doing it every day, like post after post after post. And they had a friend who was able to put it online as a table with links and everything. But because this was just one person doing this on their own time, without any funding or anything, they couldn't continue doing it. So it's unfortunate. I mean, for us to be able to really, that's the beauty of the Stolen Lives Project, which unfortunately now it's like we just don't have the people, power, resources to do it. Like we only have local areas consistently documenting, but we don't have like a national documentation that's up to date at all. Like I do the local documentation for New York City, New York State, and New Jersey.
There's a guy by the name of Rick Hill. Have you heard of Rick?
I don't think so.
Okay, look him up. But this guy has been documenting, and he's got a couple of people around him at the minute. And he sends me, and I can't remember what I've done with the last one, but he sends me up to date Excel imported sheets of the names, the individuals, their ethnicity, their ages, etc. All the information, and he's privately collecting that data and making it accessible. His name is Rick Hill, and he can be found here on Facebook. Let me see if I can just tag him in here. Okay, I've actually just tagged him on this feed. So if you go to that and just click onto his name, you'll be able to find his page, and he has got some links to that sort of data, and I think he tries to do it monthly. So yeah, just try and because for me, when you look at that.
Oh, you know what? I actually did. I think I haven't come across him, but I've come across the pages that he created. And I think this was after the person who created the Killed by Police Facebook page took it down. So now there are all these individual pages. I don't know if this is the actual person, because I never actually found out who. I just had some messaging there was some messaging between me and the person who created the Killed by Police
Right.
page, but I never really got to know who exactly that was because they didn't want to be, public or out there. So I don't know if Rick Hill is actually that person, in which case, good for you, Rick.
So here's the thing, right? And for those of you that are listening to this, because I know there's people like Keith McCarron, and there was another person who was listening for the first time. I noticed in particular, and I'm just trying to find her name, but she's I can't see it. She's gone off all the comments at the minute because I've lost them all. I've lost a lot. But again, as I was speaking to you, Kathie, before we started the show, when I was telling you a little bit about what we do. So again, I'm just going to repeat it very quickly. That I started doing this show about 5 years ago. I'm not funded by any government organisation or any TV. I've got a studio in the back room of my house, and all the equipment is mine, it's bought and paid for by me. And I do this show, I broadcast it out on the internet live every Saturday, and I've done so for 5 years. And I never intended to stay in the police brutality realm. It was meant to be a show that went out and talked about, it was meant to be about the human rights, basic rights, civil rights, etc. But I've even done shows on Sharina Shim, the American journalist that was murdered in Syria, who found the Taliban transporting weapons in a World Trade Order vehicle across the border from Turkey. I've done stuff like that and various other issues in Syria and Palestine, etc. But I started doing this show 5 years ago, and the first one that I did was on police brutality. And 5 years later, I'm still doing police brutality shows, and I'm doing a new one every week. So if I'm over here in the UK and I can find a guest every week to do a killed by cops, police brutality, wrongful conviction, etc., then how many more are going unheard of, unknown, even from state to state where you are? Because we don't get your news over here in the UK unless it gets huge. When Laquan McDonald, because we did Laquan McDonald as well years ago, but when the Supreme Court ordered law enforcement to release the body cam and the dash cam videos on the Laquan McDonald murder, I remember we did that about a few weeks before, and I'd put up some posts on Facebook, etc. But the moment the Supreme Court ordered the law enforcement to release the dash cams, that's when it went national. That's when every news station in the country reported the death of Laquan McDonald, which was absolutely horrendous. He was shot multiple times. And I'm not saying that his killing was any worse than anybody else's. But we only get these type of stories when they become big, right? When they become huge. Now, I don't know how your news travels in America, but here in the UK, it's very rare we'll get a killed by cop story on our news features. So how regular is and transparent is the news in America across all states when you're having these issues, so that proper records could be taken place, for example? I don't know if you can answer that for me, Kathie.
It's definitely changed a lot. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, so I've seen the change. And early when I was working on it, we were collecting like physical pieces of, newspaper clippings of news stories. And now I think partly because of the internet, social media, and all that, the news travels really, really fast. And there are more people creating the news outside of mainstream news media. But there's also, the reality of how newsrooms work. It's like they need to have information. They need to have what they can report on immediately. So they have a relationship with police departments. And they rely on the police departments for being like one of the official voices for them in order to get any content for the news. So they do need to be able to keep a relatively good relationship with police for that reason. I think there has been a shift in terms of Black Lives Matter definitely had a lot to do with it, in terms of the critique of police brutality being a lot more normalized. But there is definitely way more news coverage than there was in the past. But unfortunately, a lot of the coverage is still the same, which is constructing those who were killed by police as someone who deserved it, as someone, as a police. Yeah, so like police not having any choice in the matter, that they were kind of like forced.
Okay, yeah, go on, carry on, TJ. TJ, are you there?
Yeah, that's not me, boss.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, I mean, part of the research I was doing for my dissertation was kind of looking at this this official narrative of police brutality, and it is pretty much the same story that is, whatever story is given is pretty much to justify the police.
Just give me a minute. Just give me a carry. Yeah, just give me a minute to TJ.
Okay, so Kathie, you think mute your mute, Curvin. Kathie?
Right, I'm here.
Okay. I'm thinking that maybe we should end the show, and it's only about 40 minutes.
Yeah, I'm really bummed out that Juanita wasn't able to get on, because she has so much to share, like based on.
She does, and so can we just plan on like next Saturday, and maybe we can have our little ducks in a group.
Yeah, I know I can't do next Saturday. I'm not sure about Juanita.
Okay. And thank you for coming. Thank you for, and I'm sorry there's this going, but I'll call you, and that's for this World Jam Global Radio. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Okay, take care.
Take care. I'll call you.
All right, we'll cancel the show. All right, bye.